I know you were talking about like the flashing lights and things like that for the characters. So how do you really bring those characters to life and give them a personality?
Yeah, so that's one thing that I think is what makes this sort of short show like stand out. It's, you know, it could be about anything, but it's really about these characters. And they are film equipment, but they're also total characters in their own right. You know, I try to make sure there's a personality to each of them, but not only that, but you want there to be character dynamics. You know, one person has to be sort of more cynical than the other.
Yeah, right.
Has to be more hopeful. So when when we made these characters up, we tried to fit that in so that it wasn't just 4 people in an apartment talking, because that's boring.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
You want one of them to be angry, sort of. You want one of them, you know, like dumb phone doesn't talk, you know.
Okay.
So he's gonna be the butt of a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
You know, so that's sort of that character, and then maybe Mimuvi is kind of like, he's more hopeful, and then, you know, the GoPro will be like more cynical, and it'll kind of work out, you know.
Okay.
So the more they talk to each other, they're actually interesting conversations. That's how you bring them to life, so that they're not just flat pictures on your screen.
Yeah, right. I mean, what's a video or what's a movie without a storyline? So
exactly, yeah.
So what was your like idea and concept behind putting them on an island and stranding them with no battery life?
So we were brainstorming the first episode, and we like the idea of like how they're dependent on having a charge, because we want to work it into, no matter what situation they're in, they're grounded in the fact that they're film equipment.
Yeah, okay.
They could be at a concert and maybe one of them doesn't have signal. Like that'll be their Achilles heel.
But that they won't get let in because they're a camera.
Exactly. Like it's like we wanted to create like these Seinfeld sitcom scenarios, but they're camera equipment, and that definitely plays into it. And I thought that's so funny. I think that's hilarious. So what's like the most out of their element they could be? And that was a desert island in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So I'm like, what better way to showcase these characters? What better way to, you know, show who they are and how they're going to interact if they're put in this situation completely out of their element with no chargers, and they just have to like figure out how to work together. And I thought that brought out like the best in their interactions. They're not nice to each other.
Okay.
But I think that's funny. I think that's true to how real human interactions are. I mean, like, if you watch a show like Full House, okay, and you know, it's a good show, right? Everyone's soft and nice. But if you watch a show like Always Sunny, you're laughing a lot more than if you're watching Full House. I always liked that because, you know, that's the most interesting character dynamic.
Yeah. So when should we expect like either like a pilot or a full length episode of this animated series?
Yeah, so we're working on the full length episode at the moment. There's not too much I can say about it, but it has something to do with Apple keynote conferences. So we're gonna try to tackle that beast of Apple, and we'll see what happens.
Any cheese graters in it? Or?
You know, there could be a couple cheese grater jokes. I would not be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're currently working through the first episode, and we're learning so much. Every time we make something, we learn so much about the process. So I can imagine, you know, we're taking it an episode at a time, trying to get them out as fast as possible, and then hopefully somebody out there will watch it and just really like it.
So Shane, in like the world of animation, there are some incredible animations. Like look at Spider-Man Into the Multiverse. That animation
insane,
was probably one of the best animated movies I've ever seen.
It's truly up there, and I think what they did that made that movie so special is, first of all, the directors behind it. I love their work. Their name escapes me at the moment, but they're the people responsible for 21 Jump Street, for the Lego Movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Clone High, but it's one of the best animated series of all time. They are so funny, and they are good at telling stories. So they've had work in animation before with the Lego Movie, and what they did going into Spider-Verse is they said, any like normal way we know how to do animation, let's find another way to do it, and let's completely reinvent how things are animated and how things look, and it showed. Because when you watch that movie, you don't even know what it looks like.
Right.
It's like weirdly like unreal.
Yeah.
Like I can't describe it.
Yeah, that movie's just got so much to it.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller, sorry, that's their names. Yeah.
So, but the colors in that movie, the storytelling is amazing, but that animation takes it to another level. If that was a regular filmed movie, I don't think it'd be quite as good as it was.
They made so many Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, and in my opinion, best Spider-Man movie.
I would agree though, because it's a story about Spider-Man movies.
Right.
It's like meta, but without being like annoying about it. It's not like in your face.
Yeah, right.
If you watch Deadpool, like no disrespect to Deadpool, But half of the comedy is like, he's talking to us, and it like gets old after a while.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you want to be really meta, the thing they did where they introduced like every Spider-Man like every time.
Yeah, right.
Like that's so funny.
Yeah. So that's one of those things where it's like I love Tom Holland, but that animation carries it to a different level like nothing I've ever seen. Like there was so much entertainment value there where I wasn't bored for a second.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of animated theatrical films, or just a lot of animated things in general, they fall short because they're trying to make a live-action film and just animate it. They're not doing anything with the fact that it's animated. They're not trying to like stretch that art form to its max. And Into the Spider-Verse can only be an animated movie.
Yeah.
It would not work in any way.
Yeah.
So the fact that they steered into the animation side of it and they use that to its advantage instead of, its downfall, I think that's why it stands out.
Well, they even brought in some of that comedy factor with like the jokes of Spider-Pig, and they actually brought in Spider-Pig. Like that obviously wouldn't work in the whole real movie setting because what are you going to put someone in a pig costume and a Spider-Man costume?
Or try to have some like like some pig.
And it could be John Mulaney because it's animated. That's what's great. But that's Phil Lord and Chris Miller. So much respect for those guys. I mean, the Lego Movie is another incredible animated movie. You can't even tell it's animated.
Right.
It looks. I thought it was stop motion for so long, and then it turns out it wasn't. I was like blown away.
It isn't stop motion?
No, it's not
what?
stop motion. I know.
I didn't even know that.
They
Honestly, I
built
didn't either.
programs to build Legos on the computer, and they built the sets from scratch physically.
Well,
honestly,
the thing is I've never met someone who hates the Lego Movie. There is grown adults who love that movie.
It's another example of animation that transcends mediums and people. Everyone loves Lego Movie.
Do you think Disney runs the animation world?
Ooh, I hate
Because they're responsible for quite a bit of it. Or at least they own the rights to the superheroes that have been used in it. They own the rights to like a lot.
Oh yeah, Disney owns our lives. Disney owns a lot. I mean, look, if you want to talk animation, I would say Disney has theatrical animation on lock because they own Pixar as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody loves.
Well, right. Pixar is always home runs,
Well, as of late, maybe not.
Yeah.
As much,
Yeah.
with the
Well.
sequels they've been doing. But no, you're right. They have like such a good track record, and I always like to think of them as separate, but they really are the same. Disney and Pixar is Disney Pixar, so they have a huge chunk of theatrical animation. But in the same sense, you gotta tip your hat to other animation companies like Blue Sky, who do like Rio and all those other movies. They do countless movies. Illumination, the whole Minions problem, that whole problem. I mean,
okay. To some it may be a problem.
Well, it might just be a little bit cringy.
Despicable Me, oh my god, one of the highest grossing film franchises of all time.
Yeah.
So there's other companies making it work out there that aren't Disney.
They did like Life of Pets and all those movies, right?
Oh, those are huge
Oh my
movies.
goodness.
And the movies that your grandma sees.
So what is that like that difference between like your standard animation of like Into the Spider-Verse and like the anime side of things, which is really Japanese culture? Like what is that realm and where does it take you into the whole animation world?
Yeah, there's different worlds entirely. That's what I go back to about animation being an art form instead of just a thing. So like I guess you could kind of put a metaphor into it. I mean, it really just boils down to Western and Eastern animation. They're different. There are different ways of doing it. There's different ways of going about it. But what matters is that it's loved mutually by everybody. I mean, there's people here that love anime to death. There's whole conventions I've been to that are just all about anime. I see people dressing up as their favorite characters, and it's crazy.
Gravity Falls was geared towards kids originally, right? And then it just that's one of those things. Steven Universe was also geared towards kids originally, wasn't it? And then just kind of like moved to that where adults and teenagers kind of picked up on it just because they liked the storyline, or what was
really
that?
Interesting. So like animation is a lot. The best cartoons that have ever been made were just cartoons that were made for people. Like I think animation gets such a stigma with being for kids, and that's a whole thing. I think a lot of it was can be attributed to Hanna-Barbera in the 60s. They didn't have any money. They made cheap cartoons. The whole the thing with the Jetsons and with the Flintstones.
Yeah, right.
They were cheaply made. So they were cheap, so they aimed them towards kids. And that is a big part of the process for how animation slowly started getting geared towards kids. You know?
So, Shane, thank you so much for being here. We've covered so much this week, and we've talked about quite a bit. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have this week. We covered a lot in that animation field, and I'd really like to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed being on.
So, I'm Jack.
I'm Doug.
I'm Shane.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.